Hello, just wanted to make a little video talking about mental health and how fitness and bodybuilding has changed since the internet. Where it was considered before the internet that having body fat of around 14 to 15% was considered a good standard, and if you can maintain that for years, you were considered a very healthy, fit person. And you look at the internet generation now, and so many people are sharing their pictures that their optimal range. You have to have at least 10% or sub zero body fat, and people criticize people if you're at 15%, and it's like what, you know, and we live in this culture of nowadays that people are judged so much on their physique, um, rather than people being in a good healthy fat percentage. 15% from men or women is a very healthy percentage. It's saying what could easily be maintained, and but you get criticized, you get bullied online if you have that type of body percent, and how it affects people's mental health. It affects mine badly because, I'm not as fit as I was 15 years ago. I've made videos before about this, talking about that I've suffered from mental health for 40 odd plus years now. And, the last 15 years of my life has been hell. I've gone through so much, and my fitness journey, my health, physical health is demolished. I am virtually a potato, and reading people's comments online, how people who achieve, getting down to like 18% body fat from like 28, and people were like online criticizing people, saying, "Oh, you're a fat person. You're not very good. This is what the golden standard is. You If you're not showing your abs and having ripped physique, you're nothing." And it's like we live in this modern day world where obesity, people are not being very active, people are suffering mentally a lot because it's a very much a harder life. My life was hard growing up in the 80s and the 90s, but I mean, nowadays if I was born now, I don't think I would survive. I grew up with a generations who lived through the world wars, World War One and Two, and that who brought up, that mentality instilled in me with that mental toughness. You know, we people joke about the movies and that, from the 80s and the 90s being cheesy, but if you look at them, they're awe-inspiring. You look at things like Van Damme, Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, Arnold Schwarzenegger. The list goes on with all these fictional actors who inspired a lot of generations into like getting into fitness, trying to improve their mental and physical well-being. You know, this was also installed. I was lucky to be in that generation, to have that mental toughness, and I struggle every day, and all I see is online is people that you've got to be this jacked, you've got to be this jacked, and I've been around the fitness industry, training on and off for 30 odd years. I've been in a competitive bodybuilding gym. I've been with sports scientists who've wrote the golden standard of getting a PhD. I've been there, I've seen it all, and I'm not saying I'm the most knowledgeable, but I've helped people change their physiques, and when you go online and you make a comment comments, because you enjoy, the aspect of fitness. You go online and you make a comment, and then you get bombarded by people saying, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about because you haven't got the sub-zero body percent. You're not taking steroids. You're not a social media influencer." And it's like you can't help people nowadays because everyone's an expert. Everyone's been there, got the t-shirt, because they have this sub-zero body percentage, that they have this knowledge that everyone doesn't have. And how many people do you know that's been exercising for over 30 odd years, been in and out of gyms? Most people post online, not all, but most people you find will only have like 10 years or so at max of being in the fitness industry, and it's sad because, like I said, it affects me mentally, but I don't know how many it affects others as well, because it's crazy how traditional bodybuilding has changed. The fitness industry has changed. I don't think it's been for the best. I think that there's a lot of negative things have happened since the internet, and I think it's probably me being old and fat and ugly. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit. Anyway, peace out.